Hi there! Welcome back to the Snow Fort. Now, if history has taught me anything, it is that YouTube videos get way more views when they involve a cat. So for today, I'd like to introduce you to Peppercorn. Pepsi is a very old cat. We had a few cats while I was growing up, and she's the only one left alive, which is surprising because the other cats were all unusually intelligent, and Pepsi isn't. She has always demonstrated an alarming lack of survival instinct. Running underneath cars, tripping people while they're carrying heavy things. I saw her attack a Rottweiler once when she was a kitten, which was very surprising for the dog. She's been known to chase her tail and catch it and bite it hard. And then she's very shocked by the outcome. She gets stepped on a lot. She gets things dropped on her a lot. But she's still around. So clearly, intelligence isn't everything. Also, Pepsi's at a disadvantage to the other cats because they were polydactyl, so they had thumbs. Pepsi doesn't have thumbs, so she, the other cats could do things like, they figured out how to work doorknobs. Now that they're not around, Pepsi has to wait for humans to open the doors for her, which is very frustrating for her. Now, since I've got Pepsi here today, I thought I'd talk about something that cats have in common with FtMs, female to male spectrum trans people, and that is that we are both disproportionately affected by autism. And Pepsi and I are no exception. Now, I was originally diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and that's a term that a lot of people are very familiar with these days, but it's actually not going to be a diagnosis for very much longer. For the latest edition of the Diagnostics Statistics Manual, it has been decided to remove Asperger's because there's actually no significant difference between that and high-functioning autism. And separating the two creates a lot of misunderstandings and can limit access to basic services when the type of service that you receive is dependent on which diagnosis you were given. So when I'm talking about autism, this includes people currently diagnosed with Asperger's, and in fact that's where my personal experience is coming from. So, like I said, there's a disproportionate number of FtMs with some form of high-functioning autism, and that's a touchy subject because both trans identities and autism are labels with a lot of stigma attached to them, and both communities experience a lot of marginalization, so that intersection of identities is heavily politicized. I think it's interesting that both high-functioning autism and transsexuality were not that long ago thought to be almost exclusive to people who were assigned male at birth, and that both conditions have been completely invisible in assigned females because, well, mainly because our society just doesn't pay that much attention to female-assigned people in the first place. So, considering that it hasn't been very long, like, seriously, you can count on your fingers how many years it's been that medical professionals and society at large have been really aware of the existence of both FtMs and females with high-functioning autism. I think it might actually be too early to be making any definitive conclusions about either group, let alone the intersection of the two. The entire field of study around both autism and transsexuality and transgender identities, the way we define these identities and the way we think about them, is still very heavily biased by assumptions coming out of all the years in which female-assigned people were just completely excluded from the conversation. So having said that, I'm someone who is on the FtM spectrum, and on the autism spectrum, And maybe it's just the circles I move in, but I've been meeting a lot of others who are likewise. So while I can be very critical of the research that's currently coming out, especially anything that's trying to determine why that correlation is there, my personal experience and my observations tend to support the existence of a correlation between these two groups. Now, there are very few supports available for trans people. And there are very few supports available for autistic people. And it can be really, really hard to find resources that are relevant and accessible to someone who is both trans and autistic. Factor in that everything is biased towards male bodies and male experiences, and it's not always clear where FtMs fit into that. And you've got a pretty big gap in the system that a whole bunch of people are falling through. We know that very few people with autism succeed in completing university without a lot of parental support because of the way the university structure is geared towards neurotypical people. We also know that trans people are at very high risk for being cut off from their family supports. So we know that both trans people and autistic people face very high levels of bullying and social exclusion, as well as other forms of systemic violence and marginalization. But a lot of what's currently available to support people assumes that they are only dealing with being trans, or they are only dealing with autism. Things like the It Gets Better campaign, can do a lot of good. But then when it doesn't get better, it can actually feel very discouraging and alienating. It's harder for someone to say, this is happening to me because I'm trans and I am part of this larger group who are all going through the same thing together, which can be a strengthening thought. And it puts you back in this place of feeling like you're the only one that this is happening to. Oftentimes, you're stuck comparing yourself or being compared to other people who are facing one challenge or the other, but not both. People want to know why you haven't achieved as much or why you aren't coping as well as these other trans people or those other autistic people. And they often conclude that you just aren't trying hard enough. On an intellectual level, people are usually aware of intersectional marginalization and how multiple marginalized identities can compound challenges, but it doesn't always sink in emotionally what that means and how to deal with it, especially when you're dealing with two identities that most people just don't know anything about in the first place. And then, because resources are so limited, you're often in heavy competition with other people. Say there's an opportunity that's specifically open to trans people. As someone with autism, you're going to be competing for that position with a lot of people who are much better at self-advocacy and playing these social, political games than you are. There are some programs that try to match autistic people with jobs, but they're not going to check if a workplace is trans positive. And there's no reason to believe it will be. Currently, there just isn't anything available that meets the needs of autistic trans people. And that really worries me because I'm seeing a lot of folks who get turned down for the trans social worker position because that social work isn't in their skill set. And they get turned down for the manual labor position because the boss is freaked out by someone who has boobs and facial hair. And then they beat themselves up because they don't have a job. Instead of getting recognition of how impressive it is that they made it through school while homeless or underhoused, they're getting judged and criticized because they took twice as long as everybody else. Everything takes twice as long as everybody else. The older you get, the more it shows, the further behind you go, and the next thing you know, you spend 30 years unable to get sexual reassignment surgery because you weren't financially stable, and now the doctors don't believe you're really committed to it because, well, then why didn't you get on this earlier? And then someone shows you a video that says, it gets better. So, anyway, I did warn you that I was going to be talking about gender quite a lot. If there are any autistic trans folk out there dealing with similar issues, just try to go easy on yourself. Don't let them get you down. If there's any autistic FtMs out there who found some useful life hacks they'd like to share, please leave a comment below. That's all for now, and on behalf of my lovely autistic cat and myself, take care.